Oh, hi Jared, it's Susie. How are you, man? I hope you're well, sweetie. I hope you're looking after yourself and your family and all that sort of thing and your animals. Just going to answer some of your questions. So how many banks will adopt Ripple and in particular X-Rabbit? You mentioned 10% as a conservative estimate. That's exactly right. Excuse me. Ripple said they were trying to fix a $24 trillion problem. But the problem's actually bigger than that. The problem's about 181 trillion to 200 trillion. So when we look at, when we look at the bond market, the bond market's an $80 trillion market, the global bond market. When we look at the cash market, it's about a $40 trillion market. When we look at coins and cash, it's 35 trillion. When we look at the equity markets globally, they're a $66 trillion market. And then when we look at central banks, they have holdings of foreign currency reserves of something like about 13 trillion. So, and when you add up all that and a few other things, it comes out to be about 180 odd trillion. So my estimate of 10% was very, very low, that they would take on X-Current, the Ripple technology, without XRP, and I was only looking at it from that point of view, that they were looking only at X-Current. If you look at the world in terms of banks, and if you look at, say, SWIFT, which Ripple are basically, SWIFT's like an old system from 1973, and it's like a horse and cart compared to Ripple's technology, which is like the speedboat. SWIFT have 11,000 clients, roughly, and they can be banking clients, corporate clients, and private bank clients, and they're in 200 different countries in the world. If you look at the figures in terms of corporates, and I want to really emphasize this, Ripple's a coin. It's basically a coin for corporates, for importers, exporters, for everyone. Anyone that has payments they need basically to make instantly. Anyone that has foreign currency payments they need to make instantly. Ripple is for everyone. So if you're a corporate that needs import and export payments in foreign currency, you could basically use Ripple. Even if you started with X-Current, which is just Ripple's technology, you could save 30 to 40% off your bottom line because it's a reduction in costs. And also if you used X-Rapid, which includes XRP, you could save another 30%. So your overall savings is about 70%, which puts you in a very, very competitive advantage. You haven't given me a time frame for how many banks Ripple will get, but if you listen to Brad Garlinghouse, the CEO of Ripple, he said they're putting on one bank a week. Now, I think that's going to escalate, and I think that's going to accelerate as time goes on, because as more and more banks use the technology, banks or corporates or general people can't afford not to use the technology, because, as I said before, it puts the bank or the corporate or whoever it is in a very, very competitive advantage. In other words, basically, they reduce their cost by 30 to 40% if they use Ripple's technology. So a bank or a corporate cannot afford not to use Ripple. That's the truth of the Ripple's technology. Just bear with me for a minute. I've just got to answer something. Won't be a sec. So if we basically look at X-Rapid, that also means they're using the X-Current system and they're using XRP. Okay, so that's pretty important because it means if they use X-Current and XRP, the cryptocurrency, a bank or a corporate or anyone will save 70% in processing costs and 70% in terms of bid offer spreads, and 70% of the cost of doing it through a normal bank that is using SWIFT or a corporate that's using SWIFT, which, as I said before, is the very old settlement messaging system, which was created in 1973 and basically is akin to a horse and buggy compared to Ripple being, the speed car or the speed boat. 10% was a very, very conservative estimate. Roughly in the world today, there are roughly about, now these are the figures I've seen, there's about 30,000 banks globally in the world, and there's roughly about 46,000 listed stocks on the global world equity markets, and I've seen other figures in terms of about 125 million private companies. Now, the things I want to emphasize again, Jared, Ripple basically is not just a banking coin. It can be for anyone. And if you look at their clients, obviously they've got MoneyGram in, they've got Western Union in, they've got American Express in, they've got Lian in China, and Lian's huge. They're an exporting, importing type company with distribution, and Ripple is the first company to be in China. I know there's a whole lot of thing about Neo being in there, but Neo is not in there. Ripple actually has access to all that Chinese market. Now, China has China's got 3 banks in there, which are basically the 3 largest banks in the world. Basically, what is it called? Industry and Combank of China, the Bank of China, and the Chinese Construction Bank. And those are 1, 3, and 5. 1, 3, and 6, the largest banks in the world, bigger than HSBC and JP Morgan. So they're absolutely huge. Now, I think the take-up for Ripple's technology will be a lot more than 10% going forward, and I think it'll happen very quickly. I think we'll see an absolute acceleration. It's been slow, but they are getting out there, they're marketing, there's so much networking going on. They've given money to a school where they got a lot of publicity in the media and the social media. They gave money to the universities, $50 million. They gave $4 million to Ellen and did that on the Ellen show, and that got them enormous publicity. And that just keeps going and going and going. So I think the take-up by banks and corporates and the like will be a lot quicker, and 10% is like ultra conservative. And if you go by Brad Garlinghouse's figures, he said basically they're putting on 1 corporate bank, reasonably large company, 1 a week. Now, I think that's going to accelerate. I think it'll be more than 1 a week. And the companies have already put on a very, very big. They even put on Cambridge Payments, which is part of FleetCor, and that's pretty big. If you look at the companies they've actually put on, some of them are huge, and they have access to more and more clients. And some of them are already using XRP. As I said, American Express came out today. They are actually using XRP. So it means the people that they compete with, like Visa, PayPal and all those people, they're just dead in the water because they can't settle instantly. If I do a transfer from PayPal to my bank account, it takes 5 working days, and that's just domestic money, right? It's Aussie dollars to Aussie dollars. But if I did foreign currency, it could take 10 working days. Now, Ripple's technology, you can do it in 3 seconds, and they can do volume within 3 seconds. 2,000 transactions in volume. They've got another system where they can do 50,000 transactions per second. So they're pretty amazing. Other options for the banks to do instead of Ripple? Well, the thing is that there are no options. If you look at Bitcoin, depending on the miners that have to validate the transaction, you're lucky if Bitcoin can transact 7 to 8 transactions in a couple of seconds. If there's a queuing system and things aren't being validated, Bitcoin could take up to 48 hours. It's not a viable option for the banks or the corporates. It's just not viable. It just wouldn't work because as Bitcoin system gets busier and busier and busier, the miners demand more payment, and they won't actually validate a transaction unless they get paid more money. And we saw last time when Bitcoin's transaction prices went up to $55 US, it would take 48 hours for Bitcoin to actually be processed. So the miners wouldn't actually process the transaction, which was a real problem. Also, if you look at Ethereum basically uses the same miners. So Ethereum's got the problem as well. Ethereum can do 13 transactions per second, but again, they use the same miners. They pay gas as a fee if you don't pay enough gas, and the system's seriously busy. And we've seen that in the past with Ethereum kitty cats, or what they call themselves, where the system just clogged up and nothing was going through, and the transactions were as slow as old Ned, basically. So those 2 coins are not a viable situation, and I can go through a list of coins, and I'll just grab Coin Capital Market. You know, Ethereum's got real problems. There's a problem with they've got a bug in their system in terms of parity bug. They've got a bug in their system in terms of wallets. They've got a bug in their system in terms of multi-signature clients, and they still haven't fixed these bugs, and that's a real issue. And they cannot scale. Again, there's a real problem with scalability, and so with Bitcoin. And this is why Bitcoin forked so many times, because there's a real problem with scalability. Bitcoin Cash can do more transactions, but no one uses Bitcoin Cash compared to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, the original Bitcoin, has still got the problem of scalability, and so is Ethereum. Again, Ethereum forked with Ethereum Classic, and now Ethereum Classic got hacked, and there might be another fork. So that's another problem. Ethereum has got serious problems. If we go through other coins, and I'm happy to do that very quickly, you know, maybe the closest to Ripple is Stellar, but even Stellar, you know, has a lot of, you know, it doesn't have the market, you know, the networking marketing that Ripple does. People know Ripple over and above Stellar. And don't forget, Ripple is working with the authorities, okay, to make their cryptocurrency regulated and to make the Security Exchange Commission understand the technology. Ripple's always gone and been compliant. And one thing, the Security Exchange will not let cryptocurrencies get listed or anything else if they're not compliant with the regulatory environment. And what that means is you have to know your client. Under the Patriots Act, you have to know where the money's coming from. Ripple has protocol where they know the client, know your client. They can actually find out where the source of the money's coming from. They've always worked with the regulatory authorities. And I think that's what puts Ripple up there over and above other cryptocurrencies. Stellar hasn't done that. They don't have the mileage that Ripple's got. They don't even have the client base that Ripple's got. Plus, Ripple have some serious heavy hitters working in that business. They have financial markets people. They have amazing technical people, amazing developers. They're just, you know, their team is absolutely professional. In my mind, there is no other coin or technology that really is in competition with Ripple. Another thing, Ripple, and a lot of people don't realize this, Ripple have smart contracts and they have a platform. So Ripple's platform and smart contracts is better, from what I can see, than Ethereum's. Codius is one of their first clients to use that contract, and that's why one of the guys from Ripple left to go to Codius, because he sees it as being huge. Some of the hedge fund managers are using XRP because it's got absolute liquidity. And this is the thing, Stellar doesn't have that liquidity, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. Plus, you know, Ripple had the volume and the issuance for that liquidity. And also, Ripple, the company, basically, if you do transactions through XRP, Ripple, the company, take on any of that volatility in terms of price, whether it be 1 second or 3 seconds. I mean, how much volatility can there be in a price of XRP, honestly? So that in itself is pretty amazing. If you go through every other crypto, there is, in my mind, no other crypto that has the capability of Ripple. If we go through Bitcoin Cash, again, you know, Bitcoin Cash was a fork of Bitcoin. You know, they're now at 8 megs, and apparently they can do, you know, more transactions. But again, they're nowhere near Ripple. 2,000 transactions per second. Also, Ripple has another system which is 50,000 transactions per second. EOS, again, just went onto its own blockchain, I think, had problems going onto its own blockchain. It's already got problems. You know, the price of EOS shouldn't be where it is. It's supposed to be a platform in competition with Ethereum, and yet the price is up at $13.36. It's a joke. You know, they had a lot of problems with their blockchain. They were supposed to come on the 1st of June. It's now the 10th, and I think they've only just got up their own blockchain, which is a joke. There was bugs in the system already, and you know, this is why there was so much delay in terms of getting EOS up. The price of EOS should not be where it is. They got no clients, no revenue, and there was a problem with their blockchain and their technology. If we look at Litecoin, I don't see Litecoin as a viable option. Yes, they can do more transactions than Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Bitcoin Cash, and they have their own miners, which is separate to Bitcoin and Ethereum. But the thing is, Litecoin is not a viable option. They don't have the liquidity capability or the processing capability that Ripple do, and again, they're not compliant. A lot of these cryptocurrencies are not compliant. You're not going to get rid of the regulatory authorities. That's number one. And Ripple had the foresight to realise that. Banks aren't going to close down. The Security Exchange Commission is not going to close down. You're not going to get rid of your regulatory authorities. You have to work within the regulatory authorities because, fund managers that manage billions of dollars of funds or trillion, like BlackRock, who manage 5.2 trillion, they manage all the superannuation money on behalf of, individuals. They all have to work within the regulatory authority. And the only way they can invest in cryptos if they're working within the regulatory authority. Otherwise, they can't, invest in those cryptos. So, probably the closest is Stellar, but even then, Stellar doesn't have the capacity to do the transactions, and it doesn't have the liquidity buffer that Ripple has, and it also doesn't have the networking, and it doesn't have the client base. Ripple's got over 100 banks. It's got a lot of corporates. It's already generating, revenue. It's got 25 billion in the bank, and it just goes on and on and on. And, again, just doesn't have the capacity. Cardano, again, it's not even in beta stage or protocol type. I'm just going down the first 10 or 12 cryptos. IOTA's got serious problems. I personally believe that IOTA's a bit of a scam, and the technology doesn't work. IOTA, you have to verify. If you do a transaction, you've got to verify 2 other transactions, right? And the problem is with the IOTA, they don't get enough transactions through the system, and the administrator basically has to push through the transactions, which in my mind makes that system very centralized indeed. I mean, the thing is, the technology of Ripple is decentralized. Yes, the company might be centralized, but the technology is decentralized, and they don't need people to push transactions through the system. Yes, Ripple's got this negative that they say, it's centralized, but I can give you arguments that a lot of other cryptos are centralized, and I'll tell you why. Even though they use, blockchain and distributed ledger technology, Bitcoin and Ethereum are controlled by 4 major miners out of China who have now moved to Canada and Iceland, whatever, because China closed down the mining arm. And those 4 major miners, a couple of months ago, wouldn't process transactions because there was a queuing process, and they basically increased the fees from like $10 times 5, right? And you couldn't get your Bitcoin process or your Ethereum process because, as I said, the miners who validate the transactions, was 4 major miners. Now, in some ways, you could say that's centralized because it was up to them whether they were going to validate the transactions or not. So, given that, you got a real problem with the transactions being processed. And when this was happening, you'd be lucky if Ethereum or Bitcoin would hit your own account within 48 hours. You just can't, no bank can use those currencies, just impossible. The usability of those currencies is pretty bad. Now, my understanding is also Bitcoin Cash use the same miners, okay? EOS is a platform. It's untested as far as I'm concerned. It's only just gone on the platform. It has problems, and it is untested. Stellar, again, doesn't have the client base and doesn't have the liquidity, so the banks wouldn't use that. Cardano is is run by Charles Hoskinson, and again, doesn't have a prototype. IOTA has a lot of problem with its coin and its technology, and I tend to think they're a bit of a scam myself, and I don't believe in their technology because I know a lot about technology. Tron has only gone on to its own blockchain and remains untested. Neo has got a lot of problems with its technology. Again, I don't see that as being a viable option. Neo is almost centralized. It only has 6 to 9 nodes, and I think there's a real risk going forward that Neo could be hacked, because anyone, a very smart hacker could easily get 51% control of Neo's network, because it looks like they only have 6 to 9 nodes. I think it's 9 nodes now, and the founder of Neo has no idea. So I reckon Neo is the one that could possibly get hacked in the future. If we look at Monero, and I'm just at number 13 on Coinbase, Monero has been hacked. Who else has been hacked? Ethereum's been hacked. That's why they did the Ethereum Classic. That got hacked. Bitcoin Gold got hacked. Who else got hacked? Verge got hacked 3 times. List got hacked, and Zencash got hacked all in the last week or so. So, there's been so many hacks, and I can tell you right now, professional corporates and professional companies will not use coins and technology that have been hacked. That's a fact. I mean, Bitcoin Gold even got hacked, and it's because they don't have a very big network and they have a low hashing rate. If they've got a low hashing rate, it means they can be subject to a 51% malicious hack, which is just it's just simply saying a hacker can get control of the network and basically send themselves coins and then sell those coins somewhere else, right? So, and the rest of them, Siacoin, Steen, Verge, Verge has been hacked 3 times. They won't touch things like that. And the coins are all untested, in a sense, in terms of volume and transaction scalability. So, if you go down the first 39 coins on the coinmarketcapital.com, coinmarketcap.com, I just say, no way. There's nothing that comes into comparison, nothing that even gets near Ripple's technology as far as I'm concerned. So that's answering your second question. Banks instead of report. No, there's no options as far as I'm concerned. In terms of banks and corporates, IT is a huge spend, costs millions and millions and millions of dollars. Any sort of system change with the banks or anything else, because banks can't stop still. They can't close everything down. You've still got your ATM processing. You've still got money coming in, out. You've got people drawing down at the ATM machines, whatever. So it's an ongoing thing. And it's a huge system change. And generally in a lifetime, banks will change their system once. And that's why SWIFT, which has been around since 1973, and the banks have never changed, because it's just such a huge spend and a huge issue, because it affects all their other systems. And what you found in the past is banks have added on systems to the existing system that didn't work, simply because it was so difficult to change the systems. Now, also with IT contracts or technology, the new technology that comes in, it's generally a very long contract. So banks or corporates that use a new settlement system like Ripple, the IT technology, they'll have a contract that could be for 25, 30 years, a generation. It could even be longer. And so it's actually expensive for the organisation to change settlement systems, because they have to, close things down and things don't operate or whatever. And they have to run 2 settlement systems parallel. That's hard to say. So in saying that, I don't think it's going to take very long. It certainly won't take 10 years, no way. I think next year, we've only got, it's June now, I think seriously by the end of October, you're going to see an absolute acceleration of how many clients Ripple get on. Ripple, as I said, Brad Garlinghouse is talking 1 new client every week. I think that's going to, literally in the next 3 to 4 months, I think that's going to go to 5 new clients every day. And I think by the end of the year, it's probably going to be 10, and it's just going to absolutely escalate. It's not going to be 10 years, and it sure is not going to be 2. It's going to be within the next year. It's going to be fast. That's my feeling on it. Okay, once institutional money banks start to use Rapid, X-Rapid, what do you think the price? Look, the price of XRP in 5 years' time is a hard one to say. I think because Ripple does have burn, XRP has burn. And also don't forget, the XRP turns over and turns over and turns over. So as it keeps turning over and turning over, there's more burn, even though it's notwithstanding its low burn, but because it keeps turning over, and as I said, if you look at the FX market alone, it's 6 trillion a day. 6 trillion a day. Now, if you multiply that by 352 days in a year, 6 trillion, that is a lot of trillions, right? So if you assume that Ripple gets 40% of that market, you can pretty much work out what the burn rate's going to be just for that alone. Nevertheless, talking about, say, the settlement of equities, which is 66 trillion, or the settlement of bonds, which is another 80 odd trillion, never alone the settlement of cash, which is 35 trillion. So also including that, you've got huge remittance markets in India and Mexico, and it so happens Ripple is in both those markets, plus they're in Brazil. Ripple are everywhere they need to be. They are seriously, seriously smart. Look, all I can say, 5 years is a long way out, Jared, but all I can say is I think, honestly, it's going to be higher than the price that I put out there for a 2-year view of $344 US. I think it's going to be higher than that. Okay, because 100 billion, given the markets that Ripple's in, is not a lot of issuance. Not a lot of issuance at all. Fund managers can sit on billions of XRP, billions, because it's a part of their core holding in terms of crypto, and it may never ever come out to the market again. It's no different to an equity fund manager, an institutional equity fund manager like a BlackRock that has 5.3 trillion, and they sit on Microsoft equity or Apple equity, and they sit on it because it's a core portfolio holding in their equity portfolio, and it never sees the light of day because it's a core holding. Okay, and I think this is what will happen with the XRP cryptocurrency, XRP. It'll become a core holding. Now, what that means is the circulating holding of Ripple actually declines. So, and it's the circulating XRP supply that's important, because that's what pushes up price. If the circulating amount is taken off the market because it's never seen the light of day, it means there's less XRP out there, and consequently it'll push up the price. And I've got no doubt in my mind that's exactly what's going to happen. Okay, and you know what, 5 years is a long time, but things can move very quickly. If we look at Bitcoin and Bitcoin's price history from 08 to 2018, excuse me, I want some water. It took a long time for Bitcoin's price to actually move, and it stood at 80 cents for a long time. And then if you look at it in the last year, all of a sudden it just went from $4,000 US to all of a sudden $20,000 US in the last year. And now it's down to 7,500 or whatever it is. But I think once the big guys come in, the big girls in terms of the institutional money, we're going to see a totally different market. Even if these guys used 1% of their total holding, 1%, even if we looked at the total funds in the world and we say it's 200 trillion, 1%, what's that? My maths is terrible. But, even if you said 10%, it's a huge portion that could go into the cryptocurrency market. And the cryptocurrency market now has only got a valuation of about 350 billion or something. So, it's, what have we got? 320,922,475,157. What's that? 320 billion. We're talking trillions and trillions. This market could be up tenfold more. I mean, honestly, we're talking huge move here. once the the Exchange Commission, the Securities Commission in the US is happy with all the rules and regulations around for cryptocurrency, the institutional guys get custody, custody, cold wallets. The custody has a credit rating, there's security, that's exchanges, the crypto exchanges like Coinbase and Circle are regulated, and the institutional guys get a sign-off for investing in cryptocurrency. The first one they will buy is XRP because they understand it, because they understand the settlement problem with SWIFT, which, as I said before, is like, the Horton carriage compared to Ripple being the speedboat. Okay, number 5. I think I've answered those. I'm all in with Rules. I can say it. Well, I agree with you. For Ripple, it does make XRP makes sense to me. Not that I'm giving you investment advice, but there's a couple of others that we do like, and it's really up to you to do your own due diligence and everything else. But look, I'm just saying from my perspective, most of my my core portfolio, I'm probably invested 90% in XRP because it makes the most sense to me. And then I have basically a few smitterings here and there. Like I've got, TRX, I've got ADA, I've got XLM Stellar, I've got Neuromation, which is artificial intelligence, I've got Ambrosis. What else have I got? I can't remember. I've got exchange coins because I think any exchange that's making, millions, like Binance, an exchange that's making revenue and millions is worth having because Binance has got Burn and Huobi token. If you look at the volume of those guys, they are doing just so much volume, and they're going to expand into America as well. So any of the exchanges that are up and making money and that will be coming into the American market and looking for regulation, they're the ones that I'm looking at investing in. That's for me personally. So, and I think they'll do extremely well because eventually all the small exchanges that don't get the client base will just go by the wayside. There's 600 exchanges, including regional exchanges. They'll go by the wayside, and it'll be the big ones that survive. And then eventually, because they're so lucrative, the institutional market, like the Goldman Sachs that bought Circle/Polynex, there'll be other big investment banks that'll look to acquire exchanges, crypto exchanges, the big ones, because they're so profitable. Binance, for example, has only been around for a year, and yet they made more money than Deutsche Bank this year, compared to Deutsche Bank that's been around for 148 years. That's how lucrative they are. So it's pretty amazing stuff. Anyway, man, I hope that answers your question, and sorry for the delay. I've just been so busy lately, but I hope that helps. And if you've got any other questions, please do come through. It's only $15 US for me to answer these questions, so it's a pretty good deal. But yeah, look, I'm very comfortable with my portfolio holding. Honestly, I've tested the technology time and time again. Anyway, man, hopefully we'll talk soon. Cheers, Jared. Look after yourself and take care. Be healthy and well, and be kind to yourself and everyone else. Thanks, man.